to get here, and notifications go out, and who knows when they arrive in your respective things. What do you think about this? Do I look like, do I look like Mary? How is the sound, by the way? Is it okay? I had some issues. So if it sounds okay, I had to move the microphone right before I went on. So that wasn't part of my test when I did the test before. So if it's okay, let me know. And you might notice I kind of got okay, good. Thanks, Sue. I kind of got the chat on the screen, but not covering up the picture. Understand? I feel a little good about that. And there's just all kinds of other things. There's all kinds of other things that happened. So, thanks. So if I do that too many times, it'll be a problem. Okay, I won't do it. So think about, by the way, what other sound effects we ought to have. Did we talk about that last time? I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm going to go sound effect crazy because it's just really fun. So maybe like an organ music, when it's a quilt church moment. Yeah, that'd be great. I got to write that down. Let's see. Yes, organ music. Just like something for Quilt Church. Quilt Church was the original name of this show. And the original name of the show wasn't anything. And then people started watching it, and they were like, this is like church for quilts. And so that's what it was called for a while. And then it was just called Quilt Nerd. And it stuck. I like it. So this is a show where we talk about quilts. We nerd out about them. I am a quilt person. I'm an editor, writer, speaker, live streamer. And I've been working with quilts professionally for 12 years at this point. Yeah, it's crazy. So a lot of people ask when I tell them I work in the quilt industry, they ask me how much I sell my quilts for, but I don't sell quilts. I've never sold a quilt. I've made charity quilts and I've given quilts as gifts many, many times. I have some of the quilts that I've made in my life. But most people who work or are involved in the quilt industry, which is a $4 billion industry, they are making magazines, or they're designing patterns or fabric. They're selling sewing machines or making sewing machines. They're doing television shows and live streams, and they're holding retreats and teaching and speaking and having a guild. And there's 18 million quilters, give or take, in the United States at any given time. I think the pandemic is making more of them. This is my theory. And so, yeah, quilting is alive and well. We have a drinking game here. We've actually played it once before. If we ever read live on screen while I'm reading something to you, and I'll explain how the show works in just a second. If we ever read someone say in an article or whatever, these aren't your grandmother's quilts, we take a shot. I have tequila right over there. It's happened. It'll happen again. I don't plan these things. And it's because we don't like that, like quilters, we don't like that because, first of all, your grandma's great. I mean, unless you have an evil grandma, and evil grandmas are that's really scary, So I hope you don't have an evil grandma, but if you have a grandma who's cool, what's wrong with your grandma's quilts, right? Grandmas are totally great. And so you're lucky if you have one of them, right? But the other part of that we don't like is there's tons of people who make quilts, not just people who are old enough to be grandmas, and there's young grandmas too, by the way. Quilts are they're amazing. There's so many different kinds of them, and all kinds of people make them. It's called a democratic art, right? For a reason. Rich people, poor people, people of all colors, races, religions, creeds. Everybody makes quilts. You can make a quilt with little to nothing, just scraps and a needle and thread. Or you can spend, how much is the biggest gamel long arm? Somebody knows. I don't know, but somebody's going to put in the chat right now exactly how much are they? $12,000 or something? Probably more than that. I don't know. But you can spend so much money on quilts, on your quilt hobby or your art. And are quilts art or craft? This is a very good question. We talk about it a lot. We're going to talk about art quilts today, and some other stuff. But it's a really good question. It's kind of a philosophical question. What's the difference between art and craft? We talk about that because we're really interested in that. And the people who watch this show, we actually have some people who aren't quilt nerds. Well, they're becoming quilt nerds because the show's so awesome. But the people who watch this show, we nerd out about quilts because we know that they're a lot more than just pretty blankets. They are history, and women's history in particular. They are fascinating objects of material culture. I mean, the things that we make as human beings tell a lot about what we are and who we are. And the quilts that you see being made, that were made in the 17th century, well, let's say 18th century, to the ones being made right now. And the people going to QuiltCon in February, please God, let it happen, live. It's just crazy. It's crazy. So we nerd out here, and the content of the show is different every time, of course. I do a lot of research all the time, and so I just wanted to share it with you so it doesn't just go into my computer files to be lost forever. So I pull stuff I've researched, I present it, it's a little menu, but I don't know everything about what I'm showing you. This isn't a lecture, it's not a presentation, it's hanging out and nerding out, and that's what it is. And I want you to stick around. If you're new, I'm so glad you're here. And if you're in the chat at YouTube, in the YouTubes, or here on Twitch, which is where the show originated, and I'm quite fond of Twitch. And by the way, somebody said, so I'll say hello to people, and of course you're part of this conversation. By the way, on the show today, my mother, Marianne Fons, the one, the only, Marianne Fons, is going to be a guest. The guest. I think there's no other guests unless Eric walks through here, hopefully clothed. That would be really bad. That almost happened on a Zoom call once during the pandemic. It was close, but it was fine. So let's see. So hello everybody. I'm gonna go through, names, and if I miss you, I don't mean to. Of course, it's a lot. I got a lot of stuff going on, in so many ways. Yvonne, hello. I like it that you're often the first person in the room. I like that. People don't get points, and nobody's like a favorite, but I love that you're just like, I'm here. I love that. Teacher Stitch, hello. Myra's here. Marianne from dark and damp London, but she's baking cookies. This is good. What kind of cookies, Marianne? Happy holidays from Mother Nature. Caroline, I happen to know, is in Germany. Hello, Caroline. Sue, Quilting Politic, is here. Little Bird Stitch, who, what do we say? Gifted 10 subscriptions last show. And no one's ever done that before. That was amazing. My mom gave 5, so you completely waxed her. She's like, that was amazing. I'm trying to say thank you. And wow. And the last time I checked, I was at 97 subscriptions, which is freaking awesome. I started this show with you all just over 4 months ago, and so that's pretty unusual. It's very unusual for a live streaming show on Twitch to have that kind of activity, and it's amazing. It's amazing. It really encourages me. So if you're not subscribed, I hope you will consider it. That'd be great. Brendan, it's so awesome to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Jay Danseur, I'm glad you're here. Raffle Waffle. Raffle Waffle says, "Sup, nerds?" That's right. Susan Armichael is here. We'll be talking a little bit more about Susan in a minute. Theodore coming in with the soundtrack. Yeah, soundtrack emojis. And let's see, New Elizabeth subscribed at tier 1. Hey, you subscribed for 3 months. You're on a 3-month streak. I really appreciate you. Thank you. And New Elizabeth is okay. Okay, and Elizabeth, you may have to go deal with some family stuff. Best of luck to you. I hope things go well and your dad is okay. Okay, proud. Are you a new person here? Because I usually remember screen names. Well, I say that, but maybe I don't. Maybe all of you were like, wow, she thinks she remembers screen names. She does not at all. But regardless, I'm really glad you're here. Let's see. Holmes. Hey, Holmes. Padma's here. And Quilty Nancy is here. Kay is here. You've got one more day of work, Kay, and then you're off for 10 days of selfish sewing. That's what she said. That's good. 10 days. That is very beautiful. That is a beautiful thought, to have 10 days off. I love it. And we're going to have a lot of shows, in the next 10 days. So while you're sewing in your studio, you can listen to this. You can watch a little bit, go back to what you're doing. That's what it's for. It's for nerding out, learning stuff, just being with like-minded, I almost said weirdos, but it's not that weird. There's a lot weirder stuff we could nerd out about. Let's move on. So yeah, this is for you to have in the background, right? IVK Divey. I love that name. Cheers from New York. I think you're new too. Anyway, I love it. Bib is here. And okay, I gotta catch up. And over in YouTube land, Doris is here. I'm so glad you're back. Sue, welcome. Whoa, loud and clear in Cyprus in the Mediterranean. That's amazing. I mean, does everybody, does everybody always ask you what the weather is when you're like, I'm in the Mediterranean, I live there? Or people are like, what's the weather? I mean, that's probably not like a huge burden to share the temperature with someone, but like, we have a sense of what the Mediterranean is, and it's always beautiful and like just the perfect temperature, but you might get tired of saying it. So you don't have to say what temperature it is in the Mediterranean, but it's like 20 degrees in Chicago. Okay. Linda, hello from North Carolina. And who else? Cindy D is in the house. Robin's Nest subscribed at tier 1 for 3 more months. I'm so glad. I appreciate you. Thank you. Robin's Nest and Holmes and Bip. DeMarie is here. Who have I missed? I hope not. Myra is here. Elizabeth, I think I said hi. Okay, I think I'm caught up. I'm getting caught up. How are you all doing? No. Okay, Ivana has answered the question about how much the most expensive long arm is. Did I actually say $8,000? Are you saying it's $65,000 for like a Gamel Statler or whatever? I mean, it is. Holy crap. Did you all hear that? If you're new here, this tells you much. This tells you much about the world, that we inhabit. A long arm quilting machine, how people used to quilt around a frame? You've probably never seen it. Maybe you have. Maybe you've done it. That's one of my questions for my mother today, by the way. If she's ever quilted a quilt on a frame with people, I don't know. Probably. But anyway, so, people used to do it that way. Well, today, one of the ways you can get a quilt quilted is you can long arm it. And it's like a huge sewing machine. Like, that's the easiest way to describe it. It has this long arm, right? So you can do this huge quilt on a frame, right? Mechanically. It takes so much skill. It's extremely difficult. It is it's amazing what long arm quilters can do. I can't do it. And the most expensive machine per Ivana, who is a professional long arm quilter, $65,000. Fully loaded, Statler, that's the name of it. Gamel's the company. Gamel, Statler, fully loaded. That's crazy. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about here. So, I mean, personally, I think it's kind of legit. I mean, if you've got gear in your like subculture that costs $65K, it's serious. A nun maker, Merry Christmas to you. Little Bird Stitch, I said hello to you before, but I'm so glad you're here. My mom is in the chat. We're going to get her on the phone. We'll get her on the FaceTime. You're going to see her soon. I couldn't figure out how to pipe in FaceTime to my little scene, so we're just going to get her on FaceTime and I'll scoot her up onto the screen. Crosley's here. Merry Christmas. And, I hooked you on YouTube, Sheila. I'm into it. Thanks to everybody watching on the replay. We're almost there. We're going to get into the content right now. And Michelle is here. And, oh my God, Riggs. Okay. The more people come to the show, the longer that's going to take. What am I going to do? I mean, I don't know. I have to think about it. It's a good problem to have. So if you don't have crisps or chips, you should get some. They go really well with the show. It's just a thing that I do. I started doing it at the beginning of the show, and now I just do it. And I think I have to have a drink of this. Okay. So I'm going to call my mom. And that's what's up. Okay. Mom, I'm calling you. And Mom, remember, you have to mute your Twitch. If there's a weird echo or something, we fixed it before and we'll fix it, but it might take a second. So, I mean, this is new. A lot of people here are new to Twitch. I was new to Twitch, and yeah, we're working it out, you know. I'm pretty proud of what we do. Okay, I've got her. Here she is. Hi, Mom. Can you hear me?
Mary.
Okay, hi. What's that?
Hi.
Hi. Hello. Okay, can you turn your phone like long ways? Are you looking long ways? Oh yeah, that's great because we want to see your whole head.
I am.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So it's going to be a little pixelated, you guys, just because there's so much information. Oh, I got to get you down here. Sorry, hang on. There's so much information that is. Oh, I know what I have to do. Hey, hi. You're like a little angel on my shoulder. There's so much information coming out of this like internet moment that it's going to be hard to not have her pixelated. So I'm sorry. It's got to be that way for now. It'll be like the 1990s. It's great. Okay, so we start every show with I Get Small. Help them small. And Mom, I'm going to bring you down. Whoa, sorry. Didn't mean to do that.
I remember when you were small.
Yeah, you do. Oh, I have a little, hold on. I have a picture of me on Christmas morning that I was going to show. But, okay, I have to figure out how to do this. Oh, you can see my green screen in the back. See? This is how we make the movie magic. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. I got to bring you here. All right. So, this quilt, I'm going to bring up the whole thing. Mom, can you tell the good people what this quilt is and who made it? Just tell me what you know about it, and I'm going to get the full picture here, okay? Okay.
You're kind of delayed on my computer screen. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's going around.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. You're kind of frozen on my computer screen. Tell me what quilt it is.
Can you hear me though?
Yes.
Okay. So it's Corona 2. So by Caryl Fallert. So talk to them about. Oh wait, I gotta bring you on here. Okay.
Oh.
We're working it out. It's gonna be, everything's gonna be fine. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yes. Do it. Talk about what Corona 2 is.
So I heard about this quilt before I saw it because back in the day, do you know what year it was that it won the contest?
Yes. Hang on.
Or?
I think it was 89. 1 second.
89. So, there was no internet then, so you didn't, news didn't travel as fast.
Yeah, 89.
But I was not at Paducah that year. But when the word came out that this quilt had won, there was so much, I don't know if scuttlebutt's the right word, but that's a great word. But it was so much controversy because it was the first time a quilt had won a prize. I'm not sure if it was 20,000 or 12, whatever it was. I don't have the information in front of me. But it was entirely machine made. And this was just a scandal, just a huge scandal. And I wasn't there. I'm only repeating things that were told to me. Mm-hmm. But I heard that some women went out of the exhibit and sat on the curb and cried.
Wow. Mom, is Scrabble gonna bark? I'm being very professional
so
today.
And then women, I'm saying women because there weren't very many men usually, and Paducah, they canceled their membership in the American Quilter Society.
Really?
In protest. Oh, Scrabble, stop it.
I don't know if she's gonna stop. I think you better go get her.
Okay, you better go this way.
Okay, so here's something I'm gonna do here. Okay, so what I worked out before was having the chat on screen, and for some reason it's not doing that, and so I'm gonna get rid of it again. Sorry, I was so close. But here's the thing. What I want to do, hang on, Mom, 1 second.
Okay.
What I want to do is I want to make this bigger. Because the thing is, look, here's the problem. The problem with having the chat on screen is that you can't see as much of my screen. And so, I can make it work, but I kind of I don't know. It's a really hard call because I really like to see as much of the quilt as possible at all times, like this. Check it out like this, but so I don't know if it'll ever happen for us, people. I don't know. Maybe we'll just have like a chat only time together. Okay, let's continue. So, okay,
Okay, so women canceled their membership in protest, and they cried. And then I heard someone say the judges got death threats, which is ridiculous.
That's not
I
true.
can't imagine such thing. But anyway, I only saw pictures of this quilt, and then I think I was teaching the next year, and by then, of course, since it was a purchase prize, the quilt was hanging smack dab in the middle of the museum. And I walked up to it. I'm like, how could anybody criticize this incredible quilt? I mean, that corona, that circle, it's like you could just fall into it. It was so beautiful. It was like the workmanship was so perfect and meticulous. And I remember just thinking, and she did it on a domestic machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And let me ask you a question, because, I like the setup on the screen too. So Caroline in Germany says, she said people got mad because it was machine pieced instead of hand pieced. She said she wanted to know more about that. That was the problem, right? That they were really mad.
No, that wasn't the problem. No, that it was machine quilted was the problem.
Right. Okay.
Nobody minded machine piecing.
Okay, got it. So, I mean, I think this quilt is, it's a masterpiece, obviously. And there could be no better quilt to represent, I think, the first quilt to win at Paducah being the machine quilted quilt. I mean, because it's so bold, it's so new, it's totally original. And to me, if it had been any other quilt, I just don't think it would have. It's just like machine quilting arrived in a way into like the modern quilt world. I think with this quilt, it's huge. It's like an explosion, right?
Yeah. And it's so many quilts had won before that were machine pieced, but this is the first time one that was machine quilted had won the big prize.
Right.
It's not the first year of the contest. But it was the contest. It was a very big deal. And so Caryl Fallert really, she had won prizes before in Houston. She was a very well-known artist already.
Yeah. Jay Denster says, you still hear people ranting about how much better hand sewing, hand quilting is. She says, it makes me so angry. A machine is just a tool. And who do they think is handling the machine? Exactly. It was like I was saying, with long armors at the intro. It's like... when you see what long armors do, it takes years of practice. And people who machine quilt other people's quilts or long arm other people's quilts, the idea, I'm so afraid to quilt anything because I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up. And to have so much skill that you could actually quilt other people's quilts for them, like with confidence is amazing to me,
Well, here's something else, Mary.
Yeah.
And I think I'm quoting Liz Porter here, but I agree with her. It's easier to become proficient at hand quilting. It takes less time to become proficient at hand quilting than machine quilting because, your tools are your hands and there's a lot fewer moving parts. To become really skilled at machine quilting is really more difficult. And I was a very, very good hand quilter myself. Yeah. So, I think I know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, you do. And for people who don't know, my mom is like a pretty big deal. She, how would you describe yourself as a pretty big deal? But can you just tell people who don't know, like, how do you describe your career? How do you describe like who you are when people don't know? I'm going to make you big.
Well, I guess if it's an elevator ride, there's not much time. I say, I was on public television nationwide for 20 years, teaching things. So, people know what public television, that resonates more as saying, I owned the top circulated quilting magazine in the world, only that was just for 5 years. But the cool thing, Mary, is that 20 years, some of those years were with you. On public television. Yeah. Because Liz, left the show. She retired and I stayed on with you. So otherwise I wouldn't have that bragging rights of 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. I was on the show for like 5 years, but I think it was like 3 of those years when I would do shows on my own with a guest, because that was what happened is I got, good enough, right, that I could do the show with guests. And it was because I learned with you, and you taught me how to make quilts on public television. I didn't know how, it was crazy.
That's the only time we ever got to sew together.
Well, there's been a couple other times, but not. You know what, Mom? When COVID is manageable again, I really want to sew together again. I really do. And I want you to teach me needle turned applique.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm going to make you small again. Because here's the thing, and I think Dee Marie put it in the, is it better for us to like be like this? That's kind of funny. I think that's the way it's going to be. We're like little, we're like together on the couch. Okay, and people say, by the way, Mom, that Ivana says you were the first queen of quilting. Right, that's your title. Mother Nature says that you brought quilting to everyday life through the TV, the books, and the magazines, that stuff. So I agree. Okay, and Flynn, by the way, hi, and Patricia and Diane in the YouTube land. Hello. Okay, so here's the deal. So Dee Marie, I glanced over and I saw that you mentioned Caryl Fallert, the maker of this quilt, has a lot she has documented her process, right? When she made this quilt, she brilliantly she documented the whole thing as she was making it. So that's what we're going to look at first. We're going to look at with my mom. Mom's here for the show. Okay, that's what's going to happen. And Mom, by the way, I'm going to do the Caryl first, and then the dance, and then the other thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to do a deep dive, a little dive, and then another deep dive, probably after the break. And if you can't stick around, that's okay. But everyone will be very sad if you leave. No pressure. Okay, so here's this, and here is right here. Okay, whoops, that's not what I want. Go away. Okay, hang on one second. Hang on. I had all of this ready. Okay. Mom, can you entertain them for a second? Yeah, seriously.
Sure. So Caryl Fallert is a very interesting person, and I've been on faculties with her in the past. She was a United Airlines flight attendant when she started quilting. So she had a whole career as on international flights. So that's kind of like the upper. That's the epitome of being a flight attendant, is being on international flights. And she has this beautiful red hair, and she I think there was a picture published of her one time with her in her uniform, and she's just a very chic lady. So she would come to Houston for Quilt Market, and she would dress in these amazing clothes she made that would have pleated skirts with different colors in every pleat. She's just wow. A glamorous person. So anyway, so that was how she made a living, was as a United Airlines flight attendant. That's and then cool. She became more and more famous as a quilter, and I think she continued to work at her job for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
So and also, I'm almost ready, but can you tell them what you're doing for Christmas? Because I think a lot of people are, have changed plans and stuff, and they might kind of like.
Well, I talked to your sister Rebecca just before coming on the program, but Rebecca is our youngest and Mary's little sister, and she's the most careful person. She's been the most careful person pretty much that I know of through the pandemic, and she and Jack were making plans to go out of the country on Sunday or Monday after Christmas. We were planning to go to Chicago, be with them. And she had a scratchy throat. She got a test to go out of the country, and she has COVID. And she's fully vaccinated and boosted, and she is sick though. But she's checking her oxygen, and she just feels crummy. But she's really depressed too,
yeah.
Because Mark and I are going to stay here, and we're going to lay low. But we have this great idea that we're going to try to open each other's gifts on Zoom, because we can't. Mm-hmm. I drew Mary's husband, Eric, and so I brought him some lovely things. And so the idea is that I will open them for him and show them to him on Zoom.
That's great. Yeah, that's going to be really good. And yeah, I mean, so many people are having that same issue, obviously. And, we thought about coming to Winterset, and we just don't think it's a good idea. And so we're going to do the Zoom thing. And yeah, that's just the way it's got to be this year.
Like I said, everybody, we've all had disappointments in life, you know, and some really bad disappointments, and this is a disappointment, but I've had worse disappointments than this. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, so here we go. I had everything lined up, and then sometimes between all of the windows that I open and close, things change. So, okay, let's go through these images. So I'm going to read from Caryl's the website that she maintains. I mean, it's kind of an older website. I don't know that it's fair to say she maintains it, but she has a website up there. Okay, here we go, and she narrates basically as the pictures go by, right? How she did it and her process and everything. So we're gonna go through it. They're amazing pictures, and I'm gonna make myself appear again. Mom, if you could see like this whole deal, it's crazy.
Huh?
If you could
What's
just
that?
see like the setup, it's bananas. Like I am. Oh!
You could.
I have a couple of quick announcements, really quick. Actually, I have a lot of them, but I wanted to get started on the show. But I did want to tell you that there's right now on the schedule, there's no stream scheduled for the 27th of December, which is Monday. But just watch your phones, and because I may do it anyway. I just don't want to say for sure just yet. Also, for Christmas, Mom, I'm asking, Eric didn't know what to get me, but I'm asking him for some Twitch Streamlabs, that's the program I use to make the show, for some coaching. There's people who like help you out to learn like the platform and everything, and that's what I've asked for. And there's this really cool girl who does it, and so hopefully I'll be able to get like some time with her, and she can show me all the things that everyone out there who's watching knows I can't quite do yet. So that's kind of cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And then also we got amazing feedback, everybody, from Mary Kay Waldvogel and Susan Salzer. They both watched the episode on Mary Gasprick. You know, remember that? It was so good. And they emailed me to say that they really loved it. They loved it. I mean, if they love it, Mom knows. These are like quilt historians extraordinaire. I mean, it's like, forget it. If they like what you do, this is a good thing. So we all did that together. I wanted to pass it on. Good job. Okay, so here we go. So here's Corona 2. This is the story.
Together, I wanted to pass it on.
Oh,
good job.
Mom, you have to mute.
So here we go. So here's Corona 2. This is the story. Together, I wanted to pass
Mom,
it on.
you have to mute. Something changed. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so here is these are these process shots, okay, from Caryl Fallert. And most of them, I'm going to start here. Most of them are in order. Let me make sure that I've got things good so you can see. Okay, so that's Caryl Fallert. And okay, thanks guys. I gotta make sure to check in on stuff with y'all too. Okay, so that's Caryl, and this is she's got it labeled January 1989, and you know she's working on her floor, Mom. That's one thing that I love to see it, right? Because you don't need a huge studio, although it does look like she's got a studio, right?
She does.
Yeah. Okay, let me just come like this. Okay. Mom, can you like lean to your left a little bit?
Well, I'm trying. I had to. Remember the last time I was on and my phone ran out of juice?
Yeah.
So I plugged my phone in, which means the little plug-in thing is on the bottom of it, and I can't lean it against my computer. What if I turned it all the way around? How would that do?
That's good. But if you like physically lean to the left and scooch down. Wait, lean to the right. Lean to the right. No, lean to the right. It's magic. It's magic. Think about a year from now, what the show's going to look like, and you'll just be like, wow, those were the good old days. Okay, well, you're not really in the frame, but it's okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, be like that. Okay, so there's Caryl. All right, so here's what she says about this process. This is Caryl. Since the time I was a young child in grade school science class, I have been fascinated by the dramatic storms on the surface of the sun, which can flare out into the sky for thousands of miles. The few minutes during a solar eclipse are the time when astronomers are actually able to observe the solar storms in the corona of the sun. This is my second quilt portraying the solar eclipse, when the moon comes between the earth and the sun, so that the disk of the sun is covered. Go to this. The corona is the envelope of ionized gases surrounding the chromosphere of the sun, which is visible during a solar eclipse. Corona 2 solar eclipse is more a portrayal of my feelings about the power of the sun than an exact representation of what a scientist might see through a telescope. My use of the traditional block, and Mom, this is crazy. I did not know that this quilt has a back. This is the back. Did you know that?
Maybe I forgot.
Can you open the window? Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is crazy. I did not know this. So back to Caryl. She says, my use of a traditional quilt block on the back of this contemporary art quilt is my tribute to the creativity of the many anonymous quilt artists of the past. I chose robbing Peter to pay Paul, and for people who aren't quilters, that's a quilt block, and I'm kind of like highlighting it here on your screen. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's this. So basically, Caryl is using 4 really big quilt blocks, and those quilt blocks are called robbing Peter to pay Paul, and so she's got 4 of them on the back of the quilt. Okay. Mom, I believe that we have potential quilters watching this show, and we gotta help them out. Okay. All right. So Caryl says, my use of a traditional quilt block on the back of this contemporary quilt is I said that. She used robbing Peter to pay Paul, she says, as my traditional block because it's based on a circle and carries out the circular theme of the sun and moon on the front of the quilt. Wow, this is so great. Oh my God, it's so great. I love it. I love the back. Okay, so here's now her process and technical details. Now we're going to get into like her sketches and stuff. And as like a teaser for you, my mom emailed me a sketch that she's done for one of her quilts. So we're going to look at that after this, just so you know. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so there's the back. Okay, so here's some sketches. This quilt design, Caryl says, began with a series of experiments with overlapping transparent circles cut from colored plastic. Okay, that one is, right there. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, I did not read this, so this is all new to me too. I drew a series of sketches to see what I would like best. So those are those little transparencies. They look like tiddlywinks or something. Okay. So here are sketches. All right. Once I decided how the circles would be arranged, I experimented with the background and border until I had a design I thought would work. Well, what's interesting, Mom, is that she's using graph paper and a compass, obviously, and today, like, there would be a lot of people, obviously, who would use a computer. Have you ever designed a quilt on a computer?
Not so much. Liz got very good at that with using Illustrator and doing diagrams. I never did. I still use graph paper.
Yeah, really? Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm just looking at the quilt. Jay Danster says most of us would be delighted for the back to be the front of our quilt, 1,000%. And good, and the explanations, Rusty Cat Quilts is like, yeah, thanks for the explanations about quilts and the block names and stuff like that. Cool.
Well, not to digress too much, but the name robbing Peter to pay Paul is real interesting because it has to do with the building of the cathedrals, St. Peter's and St. Paul,
really?
In Rome, I think, and they had the budget. They would borrow the budget of one for the budget of the other one, and that's where that robbing Peter to pay Paul comes from.
And I didn't know that about the what did you say, the Vatican? No,
I think it was St. Peter's and St. Paul's in Rome, but ask Barbara Griffin about that.
Yeah, well, but in terms of that, like this quilt block, this show is going to go on forever because we can do a whole show on like this quilt block. There's so much to say about it. Well, probably, but the design robbing Peter to pay Paul here, Mom, is like. A lot of times you are, they're concentric circles that sort of link together. Like I'm trying to describe why it's called that, because one side of the circle is makes up the other side of the concentric one. Like the blue circles are formed because they're borrowing one of the sides, if you will, of the orange circles.
Right. Although actually, technically, you can't really do that with the traditional block because of seam allowances, but it's still, that's the same.
Interesting. I've also heard this called orange peel, right? Orange peel?
Yeah, and I'd have to look up Rob Peter to Pay Paul, but this is quite a departure. It's really,
Yeah.
I think that the robbing Peter to Pay Paul was kind of a jumping off place for her.
Okay, cool.
On that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Call it
here...
variation, and you're good.
Yeah, call it a variation, exactly. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, variation, exactly. Okay, so back to Caryl. She says, at the time, I did not own a computer or an overhead projector. I have not thought about overhead projectors in a very long time, but I know what they are. So she says, so I taped together large sheets of paper and laid them on the floor of my studio, which at that time was in the former formal living room of our 1879 farmhouse in Oswego, Illinois. Cool, I didn't know that. And made a larger version of the pencil sketch. So here are a few more of the pencil sketches. Mom, your background is great because it's another quilt. Okay, here are a few more of her sketches before we get to the big sheet of paper that she was working from.
Hey, Scrabble.
Wow, look at the math. Oh, God.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's crazy. You can do that. I mean, you can do that kind of math. And you've told me, actually, that drafting and doing this kind of thing, it's not math, really. It's arithmetic. You've said that before. Is that really true?
Yeah. Well, I think Liz would say that, too, sometimes, is, higher math. I mean, there's some geometry involved.
Yeah.
But, it's not trigonometry, I don't think.
Oh, well, yeah. It's not calculus, at least.
No.
But this is great. I mean... I wonder if she had any formal art training, It's interesting, Mom, like we have, obviously, the way we're piping you into this show is pretty janky, but it works. Eventually I'll be able to have little boxes, on the screen properly, and we can talk to people like we could talk to Caryl, right? I mean, she would probably come on this show eventually. But we've kind of talked about how, when you have people on a show and you're interviewing them, it's an interview and it's great and you learn things. But in a way, this show, it's different because we're just looking at everything objectively. And a lot of times too, these days, if you have somebody who's really in the business still, in the industry, they have stuff to promote. And that's good. We want that, but it becomes a little bit about, I think, like just the promotional part, So right now, interviews are kind of like on the back burner, Yeah. Can you hear me? Do you have a response? Oh, no.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, me. Yeah, I mean, remember the struggles we had on public television? You need sponsors in order to, pay for the very expensive production of television. And then, because it's public television, you can't really promote their products.
Right.
And so, I just remember the frustrations, like, how can we do this public television when there's no incentive for a sponsor if you can't say, oh, I love this pair of scissors,
Right.
So it's a fine line, but educational TV has its mandate and,
Yeah, it's true. Okay, whoop, that's detail. Okay, hang on. Okay, here's her big sheet of paper, or some of her big sheets of paper. It's solid because there's a piece of the center corona that is like a batik. We'll look at a detail of that. And by the way, we've got so many fascinating people watch this show. I mean, they're amazing. A firefighter, funeral director, teachers, of course. Myra is a healthcare worker. And what did I just see? Who said? And Raffle Waffle is an engineer, and she says she would classify drafting and pattern making as arithmetic and geometry. Yes.
Yes, that's good. And, getting back to Caryl Fallert, I'm pretty sure that at the time she was making Corona, she was dyeing her own fabric.
Really?
So there's chemistry. Now, I'd have to look back at the description. I don't want to say I really like accuracy. And so when I toss something off, unless I really know it, but I think she was dyeing her fabrics.
Amazing. We may learn, she may tell us that. She may tell us that soon, but that's awesome. I mean, it makes sense because at that time, I mean, look at all the solids there, right? At 1989, you couldn't get all those solids. That's something that happened with the modern quilters, when they were all, crazy about solids. The demand was there. Okay, let me get to...
And when people like Caryl, and I'm thinking also of Jan Myers-Newberry and other early studio art quilters, they wanted the gradations, and the only way to get the gradations was to dye them themselves.
Right.
But then the industry caught up with that, and you could buy gradations. Right,
exactly. Woolen Vine High and Sodimented High. Saw you come in. Saw you slide into the chat. And Leslie over at YouTube. Okay, so here she's got all of those. The lines are pretty faint, but you can see, I mean, she worked without an overhead projector. Wait, let's go back to what she was saying here, because how did she transfer her little sketch onto that big paper without... Okay, here she says it. Okay, so this is what Caryl says about that. She made a larger version of the pencil sketch. This is her quote, "I used rulers to draw perfectly square and parallel borders, and a yardstick compass and flexible curve to draw a 76 by 94 inch version of my thumbnail pencil sketch." I mean, are you kidding? I love that she documented everything. It's like she knew, she's like, this is going to win. This is a big deal. Okay. When the large drawing was finished, I hung it on the wall and began cutting it up to form my templates for piecing. I began by piecing the circles of the sun and the moon. Wow. Yeah, because here's something. I'm just going to flip back to the finished quilt for just a second, because one of the things that makes this work so incredible is this sense of transparency. This right here. I mean, you've got this pale purple here. The circle, the way it seems to overlay. I mean, they seem transparent. The circle, the third one, the circle to the right, the most to the right, looks like it's somehow laying on top, like it's a clear sheet of something that's laying on top of the quilt and making the colors underneath different. You know what I'm saying? It's just unbelievable to me. Okay.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Back to this. Okay. So this is what made me think of it, right? Because that's exactly what that looks like.
It's so easy to criticize. I'm thinking of the people that criticize the quilt because of the method used, and it's like, you want to say, well, can you make a quilt like this?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in awe. I'm in awe of people's expertise and their ability, and someone like Caryl. And I think sometimes she used to talk about, like, the gigantic drawing was almost like a cartoon of it. We cut that apart. And Monica Calvert, who made the winning quilt in the Statue of Liberty quilt contest, used a very similar method. I don't know that they knew each other then or talked about it, but she would make a gigantic drawing and then cut it apart and use the pieces of paper as templates.
Well, look at this. I noticed this. Well, maybe that's not what it is. This thing, this little green stick, I thought that was like one of those, long pencil things to make a cartoon. Like artists use a pencil on a very long stick, but I think it's something for thread. I think it's because it's here on her sewing table, so I think it's probably that. Okay, so let's get to, there's more and more of it being done. Okay, let's get back to Caryl. Okay, so the quilt is constructed from 100% cotton fabric, dyed and over-dyed in both chromatic, color to color, and value, light to dark, gradations. Interesting, I have to read that again. So cotton fabric dyed and over-dyed in both chromatic and value gradations. And chromatic means color to color, and value means light to dark gradations. I don't totally understand that. I mean, of course I know chromatic and I know light to dark, but how do you dye something? She's dyeing reds from light to dark, I guess. Yeah.
So chemistry is involved now too. Yeah, chemistry.
Yeah. Are there hand dyers out there? Are you all doing that? Are you all doing that at home? Do we have hand dyers in the chat? Yeah, Brendan, I totally agree. I mean, the podcasts are amazing, but they're all interviews, so it's like cool, but this is just something different. That's all. We love our podcasts. Hey, Kelly. So here we go. Both the front and the back of the quilt were constructing using a traditional technique called string piecing. We know what that's like. Hang on. I have pictures of her string piecing. Just a second. Let me bring them up. Will you let me do this? Will you let me do that little program? No? Okay. Well, okay. There's pictures of her string piecing. It's not actually, of all the pictures, it's the least, necessary thing.
That's big. I don't have to hear the noon whistle going off in Winterset.
Oh, no, I can't hear it. Okay, the front and the back were constructed with string piecing. That is, the picture was drawn full size on a piece of paper, then cut apart on the major lines of the design. Oh, yeah. Okay, spoiler alert. And strips of fabric in many different color gradations were sewn to these paper templates. Okay, cool. Yeah, I really want to show you that. Sorry, hang on. Quilters want to know this stuff, right? We do want to know, like, what that was. Hang on. Okay. Sorry. For the Quilt Nerd, the Quilt Nerds are nerds about history, and they're also nerds about construction and everything. So I really have to show this. Okay. These are the string piecing parts. Okay. All right. So that is her cutting out the pieces from the drawing, right? And then this is sewing to them. So it's paper piecing. It's interesting. It's like paper string piecing, which I've never really thought about or heard of. Interesting. Okay.
She really did an amazing amount of documentation.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
and I think she did that on everything.
What's that?
I think she does that on everything.
Okay.
Or at least at that time she did.
Okay. So she cut the fabrics and hold on. Unlike precision paper piecing, I did not sew on the line for most of the templates. The sewing was done from the top, and the lines were just the general direction of the next seam. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Each strip was at a slightly different angle. You can see that here, right, on this picture, fanning out as they went around the curves. The fabrics were arranged in gradations, so there's not a dramatic difference in color or value from one strip to the next. Oh yeah, you can see that here too. This is a really good example, right? They're just very, very close in hue. Not all the colors are brilliant, clear tones. Notice that many are dull or even neutral. It takes some smoke to make the brilliant colors glow. Oh, I love that. If you think about the process photos, I don't know if she had an assistant at the time. Mm-hmm. This was, she was growing in her fame and she was teaching, mm-hmm. I imagine. So maybe she wanted these process photos for that. Mm-hmm. But if she stopped to take each picture or for someone to take them, it would make the process even longer, which is amazing. What great documentation is. Yeah, exactly.
Just think if we had a picture of the process of, Picasso or name any painter, of them actually, step by step kind of, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Now we would have video of an artist at work, but.
Yeah. Okay, so now, here we go. I cut these fabrics, while I was arranging the color gradations, I pulled out lots of solid colored fabrics, both hand-dyed gradations and commercial fabrics. Cool. Interesting. I cut the fabric into 1.5-inch strips and made piles on the floor of my studio. Red, yellow, orange, blue, purple. Oh, wow. This is great. This is so beautiful. Okay, I can see now how she did it. I can. It does make sense. Because when you look at it, you can't imagine, how it was done, right? Okay, hold on. When I got ready to choose colors for the next template, I pulled fabrics from the piles and arranged them in a gradation on my ironing board. No two gradations in the quilt are the same. In some places, I used a straight out of the dye bucket hand-dyed gradation. In other places, I intentionally put a warm red next to a cool red or neutral of the same value to create the spark needed to depict fire. And then, after the templates were covered with fabric strips, I drew a line around each paper template and transferred all of the registration marks to the seam allowances. Hold on. The seam allowance, to the seam allowances with a white pencil. The seam allowance was trimmed to 1/4 inch from the edge of the paper, and then the paper was removed. In the last picture below, hang on. Okay, here's this. All right. Okay. Okay, sorry. Here we go. In the last picture below. Okay, that's that. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine. I'm going to finish this up and show you the last pictures because it's almost finished. Okay, but I don't want to keep futzing with the pictures. So let me just finish this and I'll show you the finished product again. Okay. The American Quilter Society show was the first exhibit for Corona 2 Solar Eclipse, and it won the $10,000 for Best in Show. And Mom, you said you were there, right?
No, I was not there that year.
Okay.
I was not there.
Okay.
But I was there the next year when her quilt was then, it was a purchase prize. So,
Right.
the quilt, that picture of her, she's at the exhibit hall. Mm-hmm. And then, it's a purchase prize. And so the next year the quilt belonged to the museum. Mm-hmm. And I saw it hanging in the museum. And that's when I saw it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I'd seen pictures of it, but to see it in person, I was like, oh my gosh, how could anyone criticize this amazing quilt?
Yeah.
I was looking at it, I had an emotional response.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so beautiful, and just everything about it, it's just like an infinity kind of, you just look in that dark hole and it was just like the universe was there.
Yeah. I have a picture too. I actually didn't think to grab it, but I have a picture. When you search this quilt, you actually will find this picture of me, which is just ridiculous. But I saw it at the National Quilt Museum. Is that right? Yeah, the National Quilt Museum in Paducah, right? Yeah. That's where it's kept. And yeah, I forgot that I had this, but I freaked out. I totally cried, Mom. I totally did, because it's like a celebrity. Well, yeah. It's like a celebrity. So here's this picture.
That museum was first called the Museum of the American Quilter Society.
Oh, really?
MAQS.
Oh, yeah,
They changed it to the National Quilt Museum.
Okay. So here's this ridiculous thing. So that was me when I saw it in real life. I was there for Quilt Folk, so that was a fun thing to see. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so that's the story of Corona 2. And one of the announcements today is that Susan Armichael has agreed to help me with episode notes, because Mom, in the Discord server, which is like our little hangout place, our little, clubhouse, we have great discussions there and people share their projects and all of that. But the show, there's so much production, right, for the show. And then once I'm done with the show, I'm pretty tired. So doing the episode notes is really important, I think, because people want to know, like, where do I find this link? I want to look at those pictures again. But after the show is done, I'm kind of pooped. So Susan Armichael is going to take over that part of this, and we're working out how it's going to work. And Susan, thank you so much. We'll figure it out. But one of the, isn't it great? And Mom, you know what? I'm not great. I don't want to look at myself. I'm not great at asking for help, but the truth is, I don't really have a choice, because for this to grow, for this channel to grow, and for the show to get better and better, I just have to have help. Can't do it all by myself. So thank you, Susan.
It's great you got to volunteer, because I remember when Liz and I, when our business was starting to grow and all, our accountant, Steve Small, said, you need an employee. You'd be amazed how helpful employees can be. Yeah. Because we did everything ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be great. And already we're, like I said, we're figuring out how it's going to work. But the episode discussion channel is going to be the way it is, episode discussion and whatnot. But the episode notes is going to be like this, from what Susan has kind of putting together, we'll see. It's just going to be like this huge like notebook or roster of all this stuff. So just stay tuned for that. Let the episode note channel just, don't put anything in the episode note channel right now so we can figure out what it's going to look like. But I think that's going to be really great because she can help me out. The notes will be a little bit more consistent. I've been really bad at posting them the last few shows because I think I was like, it doesn't matter. I can't do it. So that's happening. Okay, so let's do...
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And you'd get such a kick out of this because I was getting kind of a crick in my neck because I got my phone, propped inside. So I got a box of chalk here, and I put my phone on this box of chalk so that my head is not. So I'm not. I can't. I got multifocal lenses. I'm trying to see, and so.
Mom,
anyway,
you're doing really great. You're really doing great, and I really appreciate you being on. By the way, I really do, because people love to see you.
Everybody.
People love to see you. Okay, so here's what's going to do. We're going to do stamps, and this is a really short little chapter, if you will, in the show today. But I showed Mom. I was like, this is the content I'm thinking about today, and you were super into it, and you remember these stamps, right?
Oh yes.
There's just a few. I found 4 different instances where quilts have been featured on U.S. postage stamps, and somebody reminded me of this. I can't remember who it was, but a few weeks ago reminded me of the stamps. And so we'll do a quick little look at this, and then we'll take a break and come back with Michael James, the quilts of Michael James. So that's what's up. So when was this, Mom? Do you remember?
I don't know. Someone could just Google, 13-cent folk art stamp.
Yeah.
I have one somewhere, and I didn't have time to go hunt it down. But I remember buying these and mailing things to people with a 13-cent stamp, and it was so neat because there were these 4 baskets that went together, but then you took them apart, to use each stamp. So it was just really fun, the way they were. And of course. And I hope someone will come in and say what year it was, because I cannot handle Googling something right now the way my computer is.
Me neither, obviously.
But, we were just thrilled to be recognized, to have the quilts be important enough to be a stamp.
They're really, really cool.
Somebody at the U.S. Postal System, decided to do a stamp. So, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Somebody out there, tell us what year it was.
Yeah, can somebody look? And also, I want to say hi to Leslie and Cindy, who just came in, and Chris Mess. Mom, Chris Mess, he's like my go-to example of somebody who isn't a quilter. If anybody out there isn't a quilter who watches this show, let me know, because it's not like I pick on Chris Mess, but he's a tattoo artist, Mom. So, and we caught him because the show's so great, so he's like I'm going to trot him out as much as possible because I think that's really cool. Anyway, so good to see you.
That reminds me of it's so funny, back when I was I was single for so many years, and I would bump into people at Quilt Market, and they'd say, "Oh, I love your show," and my husband, he loves your show too, he watches your show, and I'd be like, does he have a brother? Because as dating in the quilt world, it's just pretty hard to get that. So his husband's watching Fons and Porter. Chris.
Can we tell? We got to tell the prison letter story. Is there a better time? Someday. Okay. Well, we got letters from prisoners, and Eleanor Burns did too, and we'll tell you those stories at some point. Okay. Yeah. So Dee Marie looked it up, and it was 1975. Well, let's see. Padma is. Oh gosh, we've got. Okay, so maybe 1975 to 1981. These were in circulation. It seems. Because we've got a pretty big range. Well, Belle is saying 78. New Elizabeth is the one who gave the range here, 75 to 81.
It makes more sense. Sounds more right to me, because the bicentennial was in 76. Oh, of course, maybe it was for the bicentennial.
I don't know either. So, I don't know. Well, but about that range, right? 75 to 81. Interesting. Did they take stamps out of circulation, right? At a certain point. So maybe they did not appear after 81. I'm not sure. We can do more research. These are beautiful, the Amish quilts. And this is easy because it says 2000 right there, right above my head. The Amish quilt, these are just gorgeous. I didn't know it was that late that they did these. you'd think it was be in the 80s or 90s, right? Because Amish quilts were just, I don't know. I mean, the Amish quilts you see hanging in movies like Baby Boom. Mom, I think Diane Keaton has in her house in the movie Baby Boom, which is the best movie that's ever been made after Tootsie. She's got quilts on the walls. And maybe it's a log cabin that she has. But anyway, Amish quilts were just with the Esprit collection and everything. These are beautiful.
Yeah, I looked this up too, and it says, I'm like, 1978 Folk Art USA quilts, 13-cent stamp. So I'm like, 78, but then I see just what another one of your viewers found, year of issue 1971 to 1980. So I don't know much about philately. Or
philately? Philatalism. Yeah. That's my other question. How do you pronounce philately? Philately. Indefatigable is. I just have to say, I finally learned how to say indefatigable, and I am so proud of myself. It was just years I didn't know how to do it.
And too bad there's a pandemic, so you don't have the opportunity to socialize with people and use the word.
Well, we do here. We can see.
It's true.
Okay, so people are saying 78 in general. So, so the Amish quilt stamps were 2000. And then, nice detail shot there. Lovely. And then the G's Ben stamps. G's Ben stamps came 6 years later. I missed this moment, but I got a sheet of these. You can find most of these stamps. The first little basket 4Z stamps are a little bit harder to find, but you can. I mean, I think I got a little. I got those too, but I definitely ordered a sheet of G's Ben stamps that are unused. I've got a couple examples of these, but because they're amazing. I'm not going to use them. I mean, maybe I should use them. Maybe that's the point. And just having them in a folder doesn't make sense.
Well, I remember about the basket ones. You'd buy them, and of course, we mailed everything through the mail back then. There was no email. And it was just so fun to just use them. And they're like, wait a minute, I better hang on to one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was so fun to mail things with them on. And so you're in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly. And Belle just said that she looked on eBay, and there are several basket quilt stamps that are listed. You know what? Oh my God, I just realized. You know who should sponsor this show? eBay and Abe Books. Because am I not constantly telling everybody to go get some of these? All the time.
When you said who should sponsor, I thought, the U.S. Postal Service? I don't think they do that.
No, I don't think they would. But seriously, eBay and Abe Books, because I like to send people to Abe Books. I bet I could take a poll. And ask how many people, since they started watching Quilt Nerd, have purchased something from eBay or Abe Books or, Amazon used books or something. I'm just saying. And I think that'd be great. And there'd be no conflict of interest if I got sponsors from the quilt industry. It could get weird because your Free Spirit sponsors you, but then Moda doesn't really want to, sponsor you or like da-da-da-da. So this is way better. And then the last stamp to show you, before we take a quick break, is this one. And this one is in circulation now. I think so. This is 2016, but I've definitely seen, I've gotten a lot of mail with this pre-sorted first class stamp on it. I'm sure other people have.
Well, it's probably a range of years, just like we found with the stamp. Are you going to show that picture of the stamp I sent you, the two stamps?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Hang on, let me...
There's not a quilt on it, but it relates.
Yeah, it does. Okay, hang on. I've got a folder that says...
Those are beautiful.
They really are. Okay, this, and then mom folder, stamp. Oh, yeah, here. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is great. Okay, this is great. Do that, and then we do this. Hello, come on. So why did you send these stamps? I know why, but just tell the people.
Okay, so this is a picture of a little frame picture that's in my studio, and along with the Statue of Liberty quilt contest, all the hullabaloo about the Statue of Liberty being 100 years old, and the U.S. and France issued, or maybe, I think one is a French stamp, because you see it's in francs. And
shoot. Sorry.
So it was just like the country of France gave the Statue of Liberty to America. Then they cooperated on this stamp issue, and so I have them framed on my little curio shelf.
So so there's a French version and an American version.
Yeah,
that
is really... Liberté on the right.
Yeah.
In French, Liberté.
That's really
and Republique Française at the bottom. It's a French stamp with the amount of it in francs. I think this is before the euro.
That's really cool.
So it meant a lot to me because, I really like French things.
You're a Francophile. You're a Francophile.
I am a Francophile, yeah.
Okay, so I just remembered I was going to show a sketch that you did, so I want to show that, and then we're going to take a break. Okay. And I don't know, my screen switching game is just not where I want it to be today, but it's okay. It's okay.
You're doing the best you can, honey.
I've got a special guest on the show, so. There's that element. It's a whole
like who?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you meant someone's coming on.
What's that?
I want to know who your special guest is.
Oh yeah,
coming.
Well, yeah, it's you. So this is the sketch
because this is nothing like Caryl Fallert's drawing, but this is my drawing of my Statue of Liberty quilt that was the Iowa winner, and all the fabrics there, most of them are Jenny Beyer fabrics. When I was making that quilt, all taped on, and like I said to Mary ahead of time, the drawing is almost more exciting to me than the quilt itself.
Yeah.
And so we've got another picture of me with my quilt, which is funny because it reminded me of the picture you showed with Caryl with her winning quilt. If you can find that.
Yeah, I can.
You can see the result of this sketch.
I absolutely can. And I just wanted to say that, once again, amazing audience members. Angela, who's watching on YouTube, says, as a former letter carrier, I have a fondness for writing letters with special stamps. Lately, to my younger grandkids, sending letters to special folks, she's saying, send letters to special folks in your life, document life, and the special stamps. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It's totally awesome, Angela. I love that. Yeah. That's way cool.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, so Dee Marie says this drawing is choice, and Little Bird Stitch says best guest ever. So
find that little picture. Find that picture of the finished quilt, and then we can take that break. And I'm going to go get a sandwich.
Okay. Will you come back for the Michael James, please?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So, but yes, you got to get a sandwich. Don't get hangry. Okay, and then here is my mom with her award-winning quilt, and it's a really big deal.
But there were only 13 entries in Iowa, so, Monica Calvert won over like 55. So,
Mom, how old were you?
I would have been 36.
Wow. Oh my God. That's crazy.
And it's in the neat thing is this picture, which I think was taken a few years later when my quilt was on display somewhere else. So I'm more like 39 or 40 there in that picture. But it's in a frame. If you can notice, I think there's a picture a little further out, is that this company approached me afterwards and they wanted to make a pewter picture frame inspired by the border. Can you see that the border of that picture frame? You got another picture of the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I do.
They used the artwork from my quilt's border to make this picture frame. And I remember feeling kind of salty about it because the Folk Art Museum, which I really felt somewhat exploited the statue of the whole contest.
I would love to hear that whole story.
I could go on about it.
Yeah.
But they didn't offer to pay me anything for my artwork.
The Folk Art Museum, who made this?
The company that was going to make these frames, or mirrors. They had a mirror in it too.
That's ridiculous.
And I just was like, it was just the honor of it, And I'm like, I'm a working artist, I make a living here. So they gave me a dozen of them.
Oh my God.
And I think I gave you, each of the kids one, I gave away. And so when we moved a year ago, I'm like, I'm going to get a print of me with my quilt, and put it in this picture frame that has that artwork on it. But, the thing is, at the contest, when we went to New York, it was the first time I ever went to New York to see my quilt hanging there. They had this book, All Facts Flying, that the Folk Art Museum or E.P. Dutton had published with the quilts in it. And they were giving these books away to members of the press. They didn't give us one,
oh my God.
The winner.
Really?
And, I made a fuss about a bunch of things after that because, and the quilts, the winning quilts that had brought everybody to New York were on the farthest back corner of the exhibition. But the sales, the Folk Art Museum's gift shop was at the very front, So it was just like, we were, they said they didn't have enough books. They hadn't shipped enough books in to give us each a book.
That is, pardon me.
So we had to buy
bullshit.
them. We had to buy them, and I bought one because I wanted to get all.
Oh my God! That makes me want to cry. Like, you didn't get paid for this, and you had to buy a book. Like, that would not happen today. And I mean, not that you all were like, tough enough. That's ridiculous. But I think, I would hope that we have progressed a little bit in terms of like quilts getting legitimate, being seen as legitimate art or whatever. And that women have learned to, year by year, month by month, day by day, hopefully some more have learned to advocate for themselves, which is not to say you did anything wrong or anybody did anything wrong. But you know what I mean?
No. I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And, they gave me, I think, $200 for airfare to get to New York, but Paula Nadelstern, who was a New York winner, lives in the Bronx, so they didn't give her any money because she could drive there. She could take public. So I mean, it was really, there were a lot of things that were not right about that, and I have all my archives and stuff like that. My what do you call a stern letter? Yeah, there were stern letters. I wrote a few stern letters.
Yeah, good. And didn't you start the Lady Liberty newsletter?
Yeah, I did publish every year. We learned we were the winners on Valentine's Day, and so I would write to everybody in January 1st. I mean, this is writing letters. There's no computer email stuff. And I would ask them to send me what they'd done that year, and then I would cut and paste it. I had to glue it together and photocopy it and mail it to everybody. Crazy. And I have them. I think I have them. Yeah. So anyway, enough about that.
Okay, well, it's an amazing story, and I'd love to get some of those quilters' newsletters actually and scan them, and we could talk about them on the show.
It's called the Lady Liberty Review.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so here's the deal. And by the way, Cindy, I see you. Cindy in YouTube land says that I need a second monitor, and it's actually a third. I need a third monitor, and that would actually be awesome because I have my laptop down here, second monitor up here, but a third monitor would be really good. So I'm working on it. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Michael James. And I think, it's a long show. What do I have to do? It's the day before Christmas Eve.
We're not going anywhere.
What's that?
The quilt industry was in its infancy, and this is in its infancy now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so see you soon, and go get some lunch. Okay, I'll be right back.
The forecast ain't clear, so will you please light my way and lead this old man's sleigh? I said, Rudolph, my friend, once more will you lend your red nose, or heaven knows how this sleigh ride will end. Rudolph, my man, you're the only one who can save the day. Say yea or nay, now will you pull my sleigh? Rudolph.
Okay. Can you hear me,
So-
Mom?
Yeah, but I need about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Can I come back in 10 minutes?
Yep.
I'll text you when I'm ready. Okay?
Actually, just call in. FaceTime me. Actually, you know what? No. Just get in the chat and say, call me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will. I got to process laundry.
Oh, okay. Well, my mom.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You could have said there was something else really on fire, but that's fine. Actually, you know what? You need to process laundry. That's like the person that you are. You don't want to leave it.
It's a day in life. Yeah. I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's cool. Just process laundry. It's fine. Everybody has to do it. If you leave laundry too long, it'll get wrinkled. And it is true. I'm trying to save face because my mom just bailed on the show to go process laundry. It's fine. So anyway, no, but you know what? Here's the thing. My mom, and it's true. You know, my mom and I are very different. It's really true. By the way, did you notice? You notice that chat? Look at that chat. Yeah? You see that? Yeah? Mom didn't, she's processing laundry. She didn't get a chance to see how talented her daughter is at moving things around a screen. Anyway, but Mom and I are very different. I'm just going to take this. I'm not stalling because we're going to go on without her, let me tell you. But we're different. You know, Mom, I hate combing my hair. This may be apparent to you all. She is keeping it real. It's true. And you know what? Okay, I have to say something. I'm glad she's not here. My mom, I always know what age she is because she's exactly 30 years older than me, right? I'm 42, she's 72. I've noticed, like, as she's gotten older, she's more blunt. Like, it's true. She's like, I gotta go, or like, I have to go process laundry. I think it's happening to her. And it's fine. It's good. Maybe we should all be more blunt, from the start, always, right? Advocate for ourselves. So that's the flavor these days. But also, I don't like combing my hair. Never have. I just don't want to like be that. I don't know. I'm a rebel. Okay. Out of the three daughters, three siblings, children, my mom's children, I'm definitely like, I don't know. I'm the one who's like gotten into more trouble, You know what I'm saying? And not combing my hair is part of that. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it and whatever. And then also my mother makes a bed and I make my bed every day, but I don't make it like she makes it. She makes it like it's a hotel room bed. No, I'm not doing that. It's like the brushed hair is just too, like, I'm a person who's going to do what's expected of me. And same with the bed. It's just too much. So my bed is made, but it looks fluffy. Like I want to get into it. It's not like some, you know what I'm saying? Okay. It's called a kind blunt. It's true. Okay, and Raffle Waffle, God bless you, says, my mom is obsessive about laundry too. By the way, Cynthia, my mom made that quilt. You had a question about it, Lady Liberty, in 89, I believe. Belle says she's getting more blunt with every passing year, and she's only 46. I mean, it was so strange. Speaking of like being blunt, what if my mom calls? I just don't take the call. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I went into the store the other day. I went into Nordstrom's to get eyeliner, whatever, and I had to return something, and the woman was like, "You need to go to customer service and advocate for yourself. Advocate for yourself." Oh, it was a note. I had like a Nordstrom gift card that was like 3 days past its, date and whatever. And she was like, "Go there and tell them this. You need to advocate for yourself." And she said, "You need to advocate for yourself," like 3 times. I was like, yes, in all things, Okay. So, Mary Fons, you and the Quilt Nerds are the coolest. Well, Angelina, thank you very much. I'm glad you think so, because my mom had better things to do. I'm sorry. I'm never going to let her live that down. All right. Yeah, and Susan says, you say brush your hair. My youngest is really like, it shouldn't make a difference what my hair looks like. I love that, but it was hard not to say people will like you better if you brush your hair, and you've not ever said that to him, which is probably good. But I mean, yeah. So okay. So here we go. We're going to talk about Michael James. Michael James is, I think, this is Michael James. Okay, one of the more talented. Hello, Michael. One of the most, talented quilt makers, certainly of the last quarter of the 20th century, without a doubt. I think so. Of course, there may be other very talented quilt makers that we don't know, whose work is not yet, known, may never be known. But when you look at his work, and some of you may be familiar with him because he's a pretty well-known quilt maker. He's written lots of books, as we'll see. Some of you may be familiar with his work, but he was really a trailblazer in starting in the early 70s. And what we're going to do is we're going to look a ton of the quilts that he's made. I'm going to read his artist statement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from this. I printed out an interview that he did. I don't know. It's weird. It was from textileartist.org. And it's a good interview from what I read of it. And I like the idea of reading him, saying about his own work rather than just an article about him. There's not always that opportunity, right, to use that kind of material when we're looking at a different quilter. But I found this as I was pulling things together for this chapter in the show, and so I thought I would read this as we look at some of his quilts. And the author of this, by the way, didn't have his last name. It just says Daniel, by Daniel. Okay, Daniel. So let me get small. Help, I'm small. And Susan just asked, he was a part of the foundation of art quilts, isn't he? And yes, it's true. Who else? Haircuts, I love this. Yes, good. So people do kind of know Michael James, right? Do you? Maybe. This is him today. That was him back in the day. This is him today. Okay, so, and I put the quilts that I pulled in chronological order. So we're going to start with some of his early stuff and then move into the present day. Okay. Actually, I'm going to read his artist statement first from his website, which seems like a good place to start. Okay, this is his website. Artist statement. Quote, "Pattern has been the constant element in my work, going back nearly 50 years. Pattern, okay? I use pattern as a metaphor for the complex systems that work through our world. Physical systems, emotional systems, psychological systems, etc. Pattern embodies the order implicit in these systems, but the play with pattern, altering and deconstructing it, allows for the likelihood that order will give way to disorder, to the unexpected and the unpredictable. This constant tension between order and disorder is a unifying thread that runs through my work. I'm also interested in the unseen world that constitutes much of the emotional and psychological territory that we sentient beings occupy. Using abstract constructions, sometimes with representational images, or images that occupy, hang on, I'm going to bring up, just while I'm talking about this, a really iconic quilt of his, okay? Because for the rest of this artist statement, there's not too much more, but you should probably be looking at a quilt, right? Using abstract constructions, sometimes with representational images or images that occupy that ambiguous realm between the recognizable and the indeterminate, I attempt to give visual form to these metaphysical domains. I'm comfortable in dream spaces and in the malleable and fluid territory of memory, and in my work I try to reach into these psychic spaces. I hope that the work evokes in the viewer some experience of these worlds held just below the outward surface of things. Okay, so here we go. And what I'm thinking is, it's possible we won't get my mom back, not because I'm mad at her, but because, I don't know, if the thing rings on my iPad, I might not hear it. Anyway, we don't need her. Let's take a look at this guy's stuff. Okay. And he's written several books. I know that, I'm actually not sure. Yeah. I know that this was his first book here, and I actually read some of it last night as I was trying to fall asleep. It's a really good, from what I read, the beginning of it, it was just a really good, solid, foundational, quilt making book, and I didn't get to the rest of it, but from what I read in the beginning, I mean, it's just really solid instruction. And one of the things that he said, and we can talk more about this, and we're kind of looking at his work and analyzing it, whatever, he's really, really a stickler, whatever. He places a high importance on technical proficiency, like the expertise in piecing and quilting and just construction and engineering and design for Michael James is like super important, right? And we'll talk more about how I kind of like, I don't know, that position has affected how we see art quilts versus non-art quilts. And I don't know, I have some differing opinions about that, or I have some things to say. Okay, I have some things to say. So we'll talk about it. And then the second book there's the second Quilt Maker's Handbook, which is about design, I guess, more than the construction part. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, this is an early quilt, okay, 1975. It's called Bedloe's Island Pavement Quilt. The titles are important, so as we go through, I'm gonna try to remember to read the titles or give you the titles because they're pretty evocative. Hey, Sewing Karen! Well, we've been on, this is a marathon show. Because we had Marianne Fons on for a while. Okay. Michael James, A Visceral Connection with Textiles. That's the name of this article from textileartist.org. Daniel is the writer of this, and it's an interview. Okay, so this is how it starts. As a leader of the art quilt movement that started in the 1970s, Michael James has become one of the most distinguished voices in the medium of quilted fabric construction. His work explores the fluid borderline between the physical and metaphysical world. More recently, he's addressed the universal question of mortality and grief and what it means to live, to love, to lose, and remember. This was written, by the way, this was an interview I just saw from like 2015, 2016. There's a lot about his awards and things. At the time, he was the chair of the Department of Textiles, Merchandising, and Fashion Design at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. And that's where I met Michael James. I've met him several times because I'm on the advisory board of the International Quilt Museum at Lincoln, which is associated with the university. He, up until just a couple years ago, he held the Artist James Professorship and taught graduate courses in the area of quilt studies. His textile art is included in the collections of the Museum of Arts and Design in New York City, the Baltimore Art Museum, the Racine Art Museum, Newark Museum, Mint Museum, Indianapolis, Shelburne, the Renwick with the Smithsonian, and the International Quilt Museum. And they talked about one of his most recent exhibits. Okay. Here's the interview. And this quilt, I mean, this is early stuff I'm showing you. This is 1975. And Michael James is prolific, as we will see, and he's still creating quilts today that look much different from his earlier stuff, okay? Yes, it's true. It's true. Who just said, the new Elizabeth, he lost his wife of 43 years to early onset Alzheimer's. That's true. And it wasn't that long ago. I think, I don't want to say for sure, but I recall that, within, my adulthood, basically. I don't want to give wrong information on something of that nature. Hey, Laura. It's nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. Marianne. Oh, Mom's back. Hi, Mare. I'm back, but I'm just going to listen and enjoy about Michael James while I eat my soup. Okay. Well, let me know when your soup is done. Okay. Unbelievable. Okay, so this is what Daniel is asking from textileartist.org. Daniel says, what initially attracted you to textiles as a medium? And by the way, this quilt is called Razzle Dazzle. Very 1975, Michael. Very 1975 indeed. Michael James says, I was already making with textiles before I thought of them as a medium. My undergraduate and graduate studies in fine arts were focused on painting and printmaking. I began my interest in quilts and related arts while finishing my thesis work for my MFA at Rochester. I love the fabrics in this quilt, by the way. This is me talking, not Michael James. They're of their period, right? I feel like you had all of these fabrics in your studio. That pink is just iconic. Okay, back to Michael James. So he was doing printmaking and painting. Okay, so, quote, one thing led to another, and in short order, I'd abandoned painting in favor of quilt making. I suppose there was some visceral connection with textiles that was stronger than any I'd felt for painting or printmaking. Interestingly, all of my work today is based in digital textile printing technology. So as they say, what goes around comes around. When we see his latest work, you'll get more about what he's talking about. The interviewer asks, more specifically, how was your imagination captured by quilts? This quilt is called Tossed Salad Quilt, 1976. This quilt is 1976 as well, and it's called Elaborated Tangram. Michael James says, like most people who become interested in quilts and quilt making, I was intrigued by the long and varied history, many centuries worth, had largely passed the notice of the art establishment that existed outside the mainstream of art history. This was women's work, so historically it had been easy to dismiss, to relegate the more or less invisible domestic sphere to the work of anonymous. The rich expression and visual authority, oh, I love that, the visual authority, that I discovered in these objects subverted any narrow assumptions I might have had about what these works were, and I was hooked. Daniel, the interviewer, says, what or who were your early influences, and how has your life and upbringing influenced your work? I love the color play in this quilt. It's so great. It's so great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's do. Oh yeah. So this is 1978. This quilt is called Aurora, and it's part of there were several quilts that I have seen in my poking around that have this there's sort of a series of these kinds of things. And when I think of Michael James, and this is probably just because I grew up, in the time I grew up, and my mom was, had the art book quilts and all that, but this is what I think of when I think of quilts by Michael James. It's probably what I think of first. It's just an iconic quilt. Okay. So, here he says, only in hindsight have I come to realize that the source of much of my interest in textiles lies in my family's connections to the textile industry and in its numerous histories. When textile manufacturing constituted the economic backbone of many New England cities and towns, my great-grandparents immigrated from rural Quebec and from Preston, Lancashire, to labor in the textile mills of southeastern Massachusetts, in one of whose shadows I grew up. I was born and raised in New Bedford, Mass., and while still a child, I saw the slow disappearance of the last vestiges of the New England textile industry, which by the late 1950s had completely collapsed. That collapse dramatically altered the economic landscape for the working class who had been employed in those mills, my parents and grandparents included. Their stories of the textile industry's heyday became a familiar family narrative that I now believe cemented my interest in its history, culture, and its technologies. That's amazing. I love that. That's very cool. It makes total sense, you know? Okay, let's see. I want to make sure I got here. People talking. Okay. My parents, neither of whom completed high school, strongly supported my ambition to complete an undergraduate degree, which I pursued at what was then the Southeastern Massachusetts University. Today it's Massachusetts Dartmouth, okay? That school's history went back to the heyday of the textile industry in that part of the country. Okay. It was formed by a merger of two textile institutes and has strong programs today. Okay. Interviewer asks, what was your route to becoming an artist? Okay, look, here's another. This is called Dawn Nebula, and it was made in 1979, the year of my birth. This quilt is as old as me. It is 42 years old. Kind of crazy. All right. So he says his route to becoming an artist was this. Immersion from an early age. I always knew I wanted to be an artist, though as a child I didn't really understand what that meant. Nonetheless, I was able to imagine what a life in art could be like, and I never really looked elsewhere. I'm going to zero in on these. Look at they're wedges, right? I mean, they're just all they are, right, are these wedges. Two of those isosceles triangles make up a block, if you will. So it's just these wedges, right, that create a square, and his genius is the color play, right, and the expert, the technical part of this, the what am I trying, the workmanship, right? It's just bananas. It's totally bananas. Hey, Caroline, thanks for coming. I'm so glad. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Christmas. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's just the vision, right? I just have to pause because when you look at how to make it, I mean, honestly, the curves are not going to be easy for a lot of people, including me. But once you make enough of anything, you can figure stuff out. So like I could figure out how to make some wedges, right? With some stripes. That's what these are. They're curved stripes, beautifully curving stripes, gently curving stripes, to form these circles, these intertwining things. But, just the way it looks, I mean, it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me. It's good for me to get this background on him because, yeah, I mean, I didn't know it, right? I didn't know it. Okay. So he always knew he wanted to be an artist, he's saying. This quilt is 79 as well. You can probably tell it's kind of part of that era. Okay. Whoops. I'm going to keep that like that. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Patton. I always knew I wanted to be an artist, back to Michael James, though as a child I didn't really understand what that meant. Nonetheless, I was able to imagine what a life in art could be like, and I never really looked elsewhere. Creating that life was a matter of doing the work, and that was always such a pleasure that it more or less took care of itself. I loved making, still do, so it was literally following my bliss. I see many of our students today struggling with questions about careers and ambitions and being unclear about what they're passionate about. I was lucky that was never a question. Okay, now they're going to ask him about his techniques, which definitely am here for that. Okay, look at this. Look at this. This one is called Sun Treader Monophony. Monophony? 1979. Right? Prolific. It's crazy. Yeah. Absolutely. It totally looks modern. Okay, yeah, totally. Oh, interesting. I don't know what's happening there. Okay. Yeah. Brendan says, by the way, the circular spiderweb block, yes, right, with the Dawn Nebula and those, is very similar to Jennifer Sampoo's Octagon Shimmer quilt. Okay. Sometimes I write down these things that you all say, and I'm like, we're going to look at that after this, and I forget to do that, but I really want to, because Jennifer Sampo? Because the thing is there are art quilters who, I mean, the modern quilters, it's interesting, like more and more I just see I've seen modern quilts that just are really at home in the art quilt genre. And it doesn't matter, like whatever, but Michael James, I think I could name several people, and I won't, just because it can be misconstrued as me saying that they're copying or they're, whatever, the D word, right, derivative, God. But I see Michael James in a lot of modern quilts, like specific people I can think of. It's like they definitely, I think, or maybe not, maybe they don't know the work of Michael James. Maybe that's just how cool, they are, is that there's these talented people who play with color and line and curve and all that stuff, and they've never seen a Michael James quilt in their life. Possible. But he's such a huge figure that if they're making quilts, really intelligently, and obviously they are, they're probably digging into these older books and know a little bit about quilt history and whatnot. All right. So, Michael James. In my work of the last decade, I've concentrated on using a variety of techniques. I'm going to zoom in on this. Look at that quilting. It's crazy. This is crazy. A variety of techniques to develop surface imagery. But regardless of the method I choose, the processing is digital. Okay, hold on. I'm skipping that part because we're not at that yet, and I don't want to do that. Okay. That's about the new stuff. I don't want to do that. Okay, I can. This applies. So once I get fabrics in my studio, this is called Sun Treader number 3, 1980. Once I get fabrics into my studio, I begin to play with them, usually without a fixed idea in my head of what the end result will look like. He is speaking about, at this time, of some of his later stuff, but I do something, I step back and take in what's there. I listen for the work to respond, and then I respond in turn. It's a dialogue. And if I'm really listening, the result is usually a work that reveals a certain rightness and integrity. At least that's the goal. It's interesting. I mean, like when I see quilts that are, like his quilts seem fully realized to me, at least the early stuff. I'm actually not a fan of the stuff that he was doing like at this time period. We'll see some of it. But these quilts just seem, it's like they really seem finished. They're like extremely intentional, Oh, Brendan, it's my pleasure. I mean, he's really something special. Hey, Susan. Hi. In YouTube. So this just seems like it's just a fully realized quilt. I mean, I don't know. Every quilt that's finished is like realized, but this kind of thing, when I see it, is like, yeah, he really set out to do something and he successfully did it, right? Okay. Okay, this is great. Okay, this quilt, by the way, is called Quintet, and it was made in 1980. The interviewer, Daniel, asks him, how would you describe your work, and where do you think it fits within the sphere of contemporary art? Michael James says, I make quilts. That admission is, unfortunately, damning in the contemporary art world. The favored term in use among folks who are a bit skittish about the quilt world is mixed media. That's interesting. I actually have not heard this. Very interesting. Okay, so mixed media. Michael James says, well, that's fine, if maybe a little pretentious. A quilt is a quilt is a quilt. And from the beginning, I've located my work in the flow of the history of quilts and related arts. I'm fine with that. Certainly, there's some ambiguity here. He says, like people are saying he's a man and he makes quilts, and they don't look like what you think of when you hear the word quilt, and he doesn't quilt them himself. A woman does that. And he says, I don't lose sleep over these perceptions and misperceptions. I just do the work. Now, in terms of he just mentioned a woman who was doing the quilting. I skipped the part where he was talking about his process at the time this was done because I don't want to say that was his process here. So I'm not sure. It's something we can find out whether he was doing the quilting on his own quilts at this time or not. Let's see. My prep tends to be quiet reflection, looking out at the lake on which I live, reading, writing poetry, going for a long bike ride, sometimes organizing things in the studio, looking through my fabric collection, opening myself up to whatever possibilities are going to present themselves on a given day. I've always worked impulsively and intuitively. So when ideas come, I seize the moment. Other times, I remain patient and attentive. The interviewer asks, this quilt is called Rhythmatron in 1980. You can see the time period of his work that I really like the best. God, this quilt is cool. Oh man, so he took, the construction method, right? These wedges, if you will, like from the earlier quilts we saw. But now there's like spinning. Because see, look, it's still, now these are set on point, right? But this, this is like our block in here, right in here. But now the wedges that he's using are gently sloping. I mean, look at that point. I wish this was a super high definition picture, but look at how does that happen? How does that work, man? I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Okay. I love that there's a conversation about dreadlocks happening in the chat. I don't know how it started, but I enjoy it. Okay, so here we go. What environment this is the question here. What environment, Michael James, do you like to work in? He answers, I can only make objects in my studio. Interesting. Oh, I don't have a name for this one. Okay, I didn't name it. It was it got in there on its own. I don't know. It's a ghost in the machine. Okay. So he says, I can only make quilts in my studio. Right now, my primary studio is in the building on campus that houses the department that I chair. Today, I think he is back in Massachusetts. I've always needed quiet and isolation from distractions to work. While I do listen to music while I work, a lot of Bach, sometimes opera, Bach, should I say that? Sometimes opera, sometimes solo acoustic instruments via online radio. I need otherwise to be alone in that space to make the time productive. Wow, look at this one. This is great. This is another like iconic Michael James moment. This is like the stripes, right? Sort of these translucent, again, like Caryl Fallert. What year is this one? It's like early 80s, right? Which is, what was Caryl Fallert's? I think that was 89 that she did it. Anyway. He needs to be alone, he says. I need to be alone in that space to make the time productive. His wife, his late wife, he says, at the time he said, Leah and I have learned over the years how to schedule our time so we stay out of one another's way. Okay. Let's see, hang on 1 second. Okay, so this is, he's going to talk about the death of his wife, Leah, which someone mentioned earlier. Someone mentioned earlier. Okay. So how would you describe, sorry. Here. The interviewer asks what currently inspires you, and this is an intense answer here. So Michael James says in 2015, 2016, I'm just coming out of a long and difficult personal journey. In 2009, my textile artist wife Judith was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's disease, and our lives were upended in major ways. By 2013, I'd figured out how I could address the experience in a thoughtful and concentrated way in my work, and began what would be a 2-year studio effort to explore this idea of ambiguous grief and loss. It culminated in the show of my work, now hanging at the International Quilt Study Center and Museum, Ambiguity and Enigma, Recent Quilts by Michael James. Now, I've got some of those. Hang on. Here we go. So this is from 2013, and it's called For Now We See Through a Glass Darkly. So this is what he was making, when he's talking about this particular loss and this difficulty here. Judy died in mid-August. This is back to Michael. Judy died in mid-August from complications from the disease. I haven't had much interest in being in the studio since the last pieces for the show were completed in early May. These past months, my creative work, such as it is, has been writing some poetry, an online blog about her experiences since Judith went to hospice care near the end of May, journal notes and reflections. I've been putting a lot of creative effort into organizing her memorial service, which will take place in mid-October, and planning toward a memorial exhibition of her work that will hang in the Quilt Center at the University of Nebraska for the week leading up to her service. Once this is all behind me, I'll be open to whatever comes my way in terms of inspiration. Or not. Grief is unpredictable and difficult, maybe impossible to control. For the time being, I'm giving myself to it. Daniel asks him, what have been your major influences and why? Now, this is a work from 2017, so we're jumping ahead. I think that's appropriate with the... Oh, okay. Now, okay, so my mom just said Michael's wife was named Judy, which he said Judith. And then his assistant was Leah. So I do remember reading Leah right here, but was there a typo in the article? Because, I mean, I do remember him saying Leah. But did I say Leah when I was reading about his wife? I hope not. Judith, Okay, well, that's important. My mom says Michael's wife was Judith and his assistant was Leah. Okay. This work is from 2017, so it's a little bit later. It's called Adrift. I mean, there's just a huge difference from the work I was showing you before, the archive, and this work here. And it's interesting because, I don't know, I want to pull up Pauline Burbage too at some point, because her work that I love, the stuff she did in the 80s and then mostly in the 80s, is so graphic and is so, bold and just like lots of solid colors and just sort of like almost optical illusions and stuff. And in the later years, recently, in the past decade or so, she's making work that's similar to this, very nature inspired, it seems, sort of maybe some fabric treatments she's doing on it. And it's just a really interesting kind of difference. Anyway, so who have been your major influences and why? I'm going to pop back into this one. Yeah. He says, too many to mention. I will say they come from every direction, from numerous and varied media. Music, fiction, nonfiction, theater, visual arts, dance, the list goes on. I've lived a life immersed in the arts, and that's been hugely rewarding in terms of fertilizing my own work. And the interviewer asks him about a work that holds particularly fond memories, and Michael James is like, he says he's not feeling particularly nostalgic. And he talks about the works that he was making at this time being autobiographical and things. And this is interesting. So there's a little bit more. This quilt is amazing. Mom, see, the reason I wanted you to be on the camera, but maybe this is fine, is that you were a contemporary, right? I mean, Michael James was doing his thing around the time you were doing yours, and I'm just always interested to this is new, by the way. This work is 2021. I'm just always interested in talking to people who were there, like, when did you first hear of Michael James? But you can just put it in the chat because, well, now you say I can call you. I could, but you know what? And I'm not trolling you. I'm not like, I just, we're in like hour 3. I am a little bit tired, we're at an hour 2, whatever. But I get very stressed, when the tech doesn't work quite right. And so now that you're not on the screen, I think I'm actually much calmer. So I think we're just gonna, please contribute in the chat. God. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Is that okay? Oh God. My stomach flips when something doesn't go right. I try to play it cool. I don't usually succeed, and you all know what's happening because I get stressed out, but I try. Okay, so how has your work developed since you began, and how do you see it evolving in the future? And Michael James says, at this time, he said, my interest right now is writing. So he's gone through these periods of maybe not making quilts or not actively doing, this deep quilt making practice, right? He says, it's something I see myself doing with more purpose and concentration. And he has retired by this, now. I think it was just, Mom, was it last year? Thanks, Dee Marie. Thank you. Yeah, I do actually think it has been a great show. I do agree. There's a lot of great stuff here. So, thank you. Was it just last year he retired, or maybe 2 years ago? And he's got a new gal. Because I remember, the 10-year anniversary of the Quilt Museum happened, and he was there with a lady. Did he get married again? I don't know. This is not super important, but I'm glad that he, has got that in his life. What advice would you give to an aspiring textile artist? Asked Daniel. Michael James says, do what you love and love what you do, and do more of it, and more still. That's good advice. This is called Mesa View number 12 from 2021. And this, I love this. Check this out. Oh yeah. That's cool. Like if I didn't dig the stuff, like the 2013 kind of stuff, which, it didn't speak to me the way I'm sure that it has spoke to some of you who saw it for whatever reason. This is really exciting to me. This is really, really something. I'm feeling it. And then the thing that is kind of ending this interview, the interviewer asks, can you recommend 3 or 4 books for textile artists? And I think this is pretty interesting. He says it's a can of worms. There's too many to list. But if I must, he says, I'll give this to you, Susan, in the notes that I send you so you can post it. This is good. Makers, A History of American Studio Craft, he says, is a good book by Janet Koplos and Bruce Metcalf. And or The Crafts in Britain in the 20th Century by Tanya Herod. That's interesting. You know what? This guy, he knows the books, right? Because he was a professor for years and years, and he's this successful artist. So if you get a recommendation of a book from somebody like this, you should probably take it. So here's a detailed shot of that first quilt I showed you, the Mesa View. It's really cool. He also recommends Annie Alber's classic On Designing. We could talk about Annie Albers one day. That'd be cool. He also recommends Landscape and Memory by Simon Schama. He says, this book was rich and hugely satisfying, and it made me wish for the opportunity to have Schama as a dinner companion. We're all connected to landscape at an elemental level, and this book is sort of a natural history of those connections. Oh, that's really cool. And then the other one, the last one that he recommends is a book called What is Art For? This is another detail, by Ellen Dissanayake. Dissanayake has written a number of books on this general subject, making special, as she prefers to call the practice of art making. They're well-researched and smart, perceptive, and so forth. Yeah. So, some information from back in the day about Michael James. And I think, then the last 2 pieces I have for you with Michael James. And of course, there's so much more to say. Oh, wait, no, there is actually a couple more things. I've got a couple more things because I want to show you his art is at the U.S. Embassy, and I want to show you the pieces that are there. And then also, I want to show you his website. Yeah, so there's a couple other things. I told you, it's a meaty show. This quilt is by Luke Haynes, and it's called Gifts 22, Like Michael James. So this is like an homage, right? And Luke Haynes, which many of you will be familiar with that quilt maker. I haven't talked to Luke in a long time. I am the worst at staying in touch. He knows. But he's extremely talented. I'm a fan of Luke Haynes, and he made this quilt sort of as an homage to Michael James, and I thought that was cool. I came across it, and I wanted to put it into the show. Hey, Sherry, New Jersey's in the chat. I'm so glad you're here. And Katya, it's my pleasure over in YouTube to introduce you to Michael James. He's really good. And Pedar, you're super spammy. That's cool. Love that for you. And then this one too. I found another homage. Julia Munch. This is called Greenish Curves Homage to Michael James, 2005. And I was like, right on, Julia. So obviously, oh, look at that. It's 2 halves. That's interesting. She did this in 2005. And I didn't see any 2 halves quilts for Michael James until this, right? So Julia was like, I know where he's going with his art. So there's that. Okay, so yeah, I'm so happy. I know, it's so interesting, right, Marianne Fons? So it's interesting that a lot of you are like, cool, like this person's new to me. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that Quilt Nerd can introduce you to people. And, you know, there's, and in terms of the modern quilters, oh, I'm going to look up that person, the modern quilter that Brendan mentioned. Jennifer Sampu, modern quilt, octagon. You know, a lot of the modern quilters, oh yeah, wow. A lot of the modern quilters, I don't know their work very well. And so you all are going to definitely be, introducing me to people that I don't know about, you know what I'm saying? So it's a pretty tiny picture, but hopefully, is this the one? This is called Shimmer. So I don't know if this is the one you were talking about, Brendan. What's going on? Oh, here. I can see what you're saying though about this, and if she's got more work like this, you know, I can see what she's doing there. Yeah, it's true. It's really pretty. That looks like hand dyed, don't you think? I mean, here, that looks like hand dyed fabric to me. It's beautiful. Yeah, color play is just awesome. And Brendan, if you have a link to the actual quilt you were thinking of. Oh, wait. Oh, Octagon Shimmer. Yeah, I think, okay. Yeah, well, anyway, if you've got it, find it and I'll see if I can pop it up. But here, I'm gonna just show you a couple more things. I love that you have a sense of Michael James now. So here, art in the embassies, U.S. Department of State. So they have several of his works. Yeah, and they've got, more about his artist statement. We don't need to read that right now. But here are some of the works that the embassy has. And it's this, this work that's much more, this natural landscape kind of thing, these like very close point of view kinds of things. So I said in the beginning that Michael James, like, it was weird. We had a weird moment, and he's kind of salty, all right? I'm not throwing shade, whatever. He is. He's kind of, in my interactions with him, he's I found it kind of hard to talk to him, and maybe it's because I'm intimidated, or maybe because, he's fancy, or maybe because he's just, he's focused on something else. I don't know. But there was this moment, and it's really stuck with me because I do respect him so much, and I'm not saying I don't now, but what happened is we were at the university, we were at the Quilt Museum, and we were going through this exhibit there in the galleries, and I had just, and one of the shows, one of the exhibits in the museum was like scrap quilts. It was some kind of scrap quilt thing. Maybe it was Magnificent Obsession or something with like tons of tiny pieces. They were quilts with tiny pieces, okay? And I also want to go through the Sakwa collection, the Studio Art Quilt Associates, what they have of Michael James's, just because it's pretty and stuff. Here, we might be able to, oh, no. So it was at the same time that, I gotta talk to you. Hang on. I just gotta talk to you. This is important. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Do this, and I just gotta talk. Because this is really important, and we've actually talked about things like this before. Like, we've discussed this particular situation. Okay, so at the same time, the Annette Jarrow exhibit was going on, okay? Here, I'm going to just do this so a little prettier. Okay, the Annette Jarrow exhibit was going on, and she is the collector, very famous for the soldier quilts, those intarsia quilts that we've looked at before, okay? And we can look at again. We've never looked at Annette Jarrow's collection, but we will. And these are the quilts that we've seen on this show and that you've all seen yourself that are made from wool, soldiers, in various wars, right, have cut uniform material apart and sewn these extraordinary quilts, right, together. And in that exhibit, the information that was next to every quilt, the dialectic something, said artist unidentified. That was how they attributed the work. It was artist unidentified. But on the scrap quilts, it said maker unknown. And I was like, huh? I didn't love that. Annette Jarrow. I just wondered about it, and I felt a type of way about it because artist is a great word, like if you get the word artist, attached to your name and it really means something. I mean, that's really amazing, right? So it's just this art versus craft debate, but it was right in front of my face. It was like, why are the men, and then it was a male-female thing too. I mean, of course, right? Like it was just sort of stark that these quilts over here were artist unidentified and the scrap quilts was maker unknown. I mean, to me, this just seemed like a really big difference in the same museum, and I was displeased. I just wanted to know more, and so I'm just gonna open this. And so Michael James was there, and I brought it up, and he just kind of dismissed it. He just kind of, I don't know, I just felt really dismissed by it, and he did say something like, later, was it, did he tell me then, or did I learn later? Like the idea that an art quilt can be called an art quilt, like, or the way he saw it was that it has to be made by somebody who was trained in art, like formally trained. And if I'm wrong about that, Mr. James, like I want to be set right, because my understanding is that, you can only have produced an art quilt if you were formally trained in art, that's what separates it from somebody making a really cool, like, modern quilt, right? Is this gal, this Jennifer Sampu, is she an artist or is she a maker? And if she doesn't have formal art training, by this rule, she would be a maker. And if in 50 years or 100 years we lose the name of the person who made her quilt that Brendan was talking about, if she's unknown at that point, then she's maker unknown and not artist unidentified. Now, I will say that the Annette Jarrow exhibit was, it traveled, and I think it was at the Folk Art Museum, Mom, wasn't it? And it was maybe, it wasn't at the Met, was that? No. Anyway, it was in New York, it's a big deal. And maybe the writing for each of the quilts was imported from that museum. And maybe it's as simple as that, right? That the quilts that I saw in the quilt exhibit, the Quilt Museum's exhibit, that's the way they do it there. And it's sort of a standardized thing. And maybe that exhibit had a different writer, or different curators, who were doing that. And that's okay. I mean, that's not Michael James's fault or whatever. But I don't know. There's this snobbery. I'm not saying he's a snob. I'm not. I don't want to call people names on this show. I'm not trying to start something. But, there's this, it's really hard and he talked about it, which is why I'm really glad to read this, because, he does recognize, of course, he loves quilts. So he knows the history and he has this connection to the textile mills in New England. That's amazing, and he talks about women's work and stuff. But how come the men were artist unidentified and the women were maker unknown? And is it really true that you would need to have an art degree to really be able to call your quilts art quilts? I mean, Nancy Crow is formally trained. Michael James is formerly trained. Nancy Halpern, formerly trained. And, these people just blast it out of the water, 1,000%. They're making art quilts and it's amazing. But it's when you're not formally trained in academic art practice, you're making what? Outsider art, vernacular art, folk art, or you're a maker, or you have a craft or a hobby. And I understand, like, I do understand, like, my favorite definition of art, I'm just kind of on a tear, I won't go on too much longer, okay? But, like, my favorite definition of art is spirit made manifest, okay? I love that. And I've looked for the person who said it, and it's attributed to different people. I can't really find a source for it, but I think it's really, really good. And when you see a piece of art like Corona 2, okay, and you see someone manifesting like what they felt, like their spirit, right? Let me try to get the chat a little bit more visible. If somebody has, you know, an artist, right, has a feeling or wants to capture a thing, right, and they're an artist, they want to express themselves, they want to make art. And I feel like when they manifest what they see in their mind or what they are feeling, they manifest spirit really well, like because they have experience, because they have training sometimes, because they've just been doing it for so long, because they have natural talent, you know, because they've failed a lot. Whatever it is, when somebody really nails it and they get it right and it's fully realized and they realize they manifest the spirit that they were after, then you get art. You know, art happens, you know. But spirit can be made manifest in something that, you know, an untrained person has made, and it's not a fluke. I don't think maybe you have some art that's sort of like a fluke, but most of the time, artists who are really good have been making art for a long time and making lots of different kinds of art. You know, anytime somebody's like, I could do that, you know, my kid could do that. Like Tracy Emin is one of my favorite artists, and she makes quilts. She has made quilts, and I can't wait to talk about Tracy Emin. She's one of my favorite people, and she made quilts for a while, and you could look at it and be like, I could do that. And she has like swear words all over her quilts, you know, fuck and all this stuff. And you can look at it and be like, well, anybody could do that. But she's an amazing artist. You see her drawings, you see her sculpture, incredible. Sanford Biggers, the guy who uses quilts a lot in his work. I saw some of his work in London. The sculpture that he does marble sculpture. Anyway, so artists who are really good, they can manifest spirit really well. And I like that, and I see that. But I just don't think that you have to be a professionally trained artist to manifest spirit beautifully, perfectly, right? And so it was just a weird moment. And anyway, there's my little speech about it. But some people have such talent. Sue says they don't need formal education. Hey, Marianne. Marianne in London says, as the British say, the proof is in the pudding. If it looks like art, it's art. If the pudding tastes good, it's a good tasting pudding. Never mind who made it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. That's my scoop. Thank you for hanging in there. It really affected me, you know. Yeah, exactly. And Mom, the men that made the Intarsia quilts were recuperating wounded soldiers, not trained artists. Exactly. So, you know, how come they got the artist moniker and you know, the scrap quilters didn't? It was just plain as day that, you know, we attach these and it really makes a difference. It's not a small thing, because if we have been exhibiting quilts from the beginning saying artist unknown or artist unidentified, because we may be able to identify them, you know, we'd have a different sense of quilts, because for so long when quilts have been exhibited, it's anonymous, made by anonymous. It's like, well, she wasn't anonymous. We just don't know who it was. And Virginia Woolf famously said anonymous was a woman. Anonymous was a woman, because we don't know her name when we know these things. So anyway, it's this like subtle thing. It seems like it doesn't matter, but then the aggregate of it all really matters. So I'd like to talk to Michael James about that, you know? Call me. Let's hang out. Maybe I'll have a man. It's my first guest. I'm not. I won't. Sorry, I won't. Love men. Love you. Love that. It's fine. Great. Big fan. But I think we'll probably have a lady on the first time. Well, we did. My mom. Okay, everybody. This is my joy. I am so glad that you came today. Mom, thank you so much. I mean, I was razzing you, you know, about having to do your laundry, but I completely get it. I should do laundry too. This is just my joy, and I know a lot of you are really enjoying it too, and that makes me so happy. And I don't know, it's like I kind of don't want to get off the show, but you know, probably should. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for gifting these subs. I mean, it's truly like the coolest. It's the coolest when I see that that's happening. So thank you. It means a lot to me. And yeah, I mean, the next show the next show is the day after Christmas, because tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and that's a special day no matter what you're doing. And Christmas Day is Christmas Day. I don't know. I keep threatening to go on, at an unscheduled time, and I'll still keep threatening it. I mean, I don't know. So many people are doing things maybe you just, I don't know. Is it blasphemous to do an online show on Christmas Day? I don't think so. Of course not. I'm just kidding. But anyway, but for sure, on Sunday at 10 a.m., we'll do a morning thing. You'll be eating leftovers, maybe playing with all the new toys you got, and we'll do some fun stuff. So, Mom, thank you so much, and everybody who came today. I just value you a lot. Okay, the quilt mural show. Yes, quilt murals. Thanks, Faith. All right. Merry Christmas, Ivana. Merry Christmas.